it has been described, with a brutal clarity, as a structure through which young men sell the entertainment value of their own neural destruction. For the institution itself, the National Football League, the objective truth of that statement is almost irrelevant. What matters, what has always mattered, is belief. And the scale of that belief is colossal. By any measure, revenue per team, per game, or in its staggering totality, it is the largest sports league on Earth. Its annual income rivals that of a global fast food empire. A single franchise, the Dallas Cowboys, wields the financial weight of the world's largest chain of fitness centers. In the history of American broadcasting, only one live event has ever captured a larger audience than the Super Bowl: the Apollo 11 moon landing. Week after week, the league's Sunday night broadcast draws in one of every 16 Americans, making it the most successful television program ever conceived. But this empire now faces a quiet reckoning. A belief, rooted not in opinion, but in evidence, is taking hold. That the game is fundamentally hostile to the human brain. A growing body of scientific work confirms that the spectacle so many adore frequently causes permanent neurological damage, a pathway to debilitating cognitive dysfunction in later life. The immediate threat is not a mass exodus of fans, repulsed by the violence they have long accepted as part of the show. The danger is something different, something the league recognizes as an existential threat to its future. As a point of contrast, consider ice hockey, the nation's second most popular contact sport. The National Hockey League has openly acknowledged the danger of brain injuries and has altered its game to mitigate them. Yet, it appears far less consumed by the financial threat this reality poses. On the surface, this seems a paradox. Research indicates the NFL's per-game, per-player concussion rate is 3.8 times higher than that of the NHL. In any given contest, a football player is far more likely to suffer this specific, acute trauma. But the cadence of the seasons tells another story. An NHL schedule contains 4.8 times more games, and over the course of a year, studies confirm the hockey player faces a similar, if not slightly higher, risk of concussion. The discrepancy in institutional fear, then, is not about the single, violent impact that makes the headlines. It is about something more insidious. It is about the realization that a single concussion, however damaging, is rarely the true, long-term issue. The real cost is paid not in the one dramatic moment, but in the thousands of smaller collisions that go unnoticed, accumulating over a career, until they form a debt the mind can no longer pay. For the athlete, it begins as a fog, a temporary, bewildering impairment of the mind. Knowledge, once held for a test, becomes elusive. Patience wears thin, replaced by a sudden irritability. The world itself seems to turn against them. Light becomes an assault, sound a painful intrusion. These are the hallmarks of a concussion, and in most cases, they are a fleeting shadow, subsiding within a couple of weeks. While a fraction of these injuries can lead to permanent issues, a risk that climbs with each subsequent impact. Severe, lasting cognitive damage from a single sports-induced event remains rare. But to count only the diagnosed concussions is to miss the true nature of the danger. It is a metric that tells a dangerously incomplete story. Consider the violent ballet of ice hockey. Players glide across the rink at speeds exceeding 20 miles per hour, a velocity that can lead to collisions of breathtaking force. Yet, within this chaos, there are codes, rules designed to contain the fury. A check is only permitted against a player controlling the puck, and only from the front or the side. An impact from behind is a cardinal sin, punished with the sport's most severe penalties, for it risks sending a player's head or spine crashing into the unforgiving boards. The boards themselves are part of the system. They're plexiglass designed to flex, to absorb a portion of the energy. The result is a game where the most devastating hits are, by design, relatively infrequent. One study of collegiate players found they experienced an average of 287 head impacts in a season. But on the gridiron, a different calculus is at play. Here, head impact is not an occasional consequence of the game. It is woven into its very fabric. The action that concludes nearly every play is a tackle, a collision that frequently involves the head. The primary method of preventing that tackle is the block, another act that, time and again, involves a head impact. The numbers reveal a stark contrast. In a single season of football, a player may endure between 1,000 and 1,500 head impacts, and for some positions, even more. A given blow in football may be less likely to cause a full-blown concussion than a high-speed collision on ice. But that single fact is a dangerous distraction. Each of those more frequent, sub-concussive impacts in football is another deposit into a terrible account, a relentless, cumulative sum of head trauma. And here, the science reveals a chilling truth. The single, catastrophic collision may be less predictive of future cognitive decline than the steady, attritional drumbeat of lesser hits. It is this accumulation, this unseen damage, that correlates most strongly with the specter of long-term disability. The subtlety of that conclusion carries the entire weight of a sport's future. If the problem were merely the high-impact collisions that produce concussions, the solution would be simpler: a new rule set, a change in engineering. But if the danger lies not in the game's most violent moments, but in the routine rhythm of every single play, how does a sport save itself from its own nature? It forces a reckoning with the invisible toll of every yard gained and every line held. The growing academic consensus whispers a terrible truth: that the most iconic feature of the sport, the relentless, celebrated contact, is inextricably linked to future cognitive ruin. The first link in a chain of discovery was forged here, in the cold quiet of Pittsburgh's Allegheny County Medical Examiner's office in September of 2002. The neuropathologist on call was Dr. Bennet Omalu. Having immigrated from Nigeria less than a decade prior, he knew little of American football. This made him one of the few people in the city who did not recognize the name attached to the body that arrived overnight: Mike Webster, a legend of the Pittsburgh Steelers. In the 70s, Webster was a titan, the celebrated center of a 4-time Super Bowl-winning offensive line. For 17 seasons, nearly every play began the same. He would snap the ball, then charge forward, colliding head-on with the opposing defensive line. It was a career built on impact, a tally of thousands upon thousands of collisions. No matter how hard the hit, game after game, season after season. He would always line up for the next one. They called him Iron Mike. But when his career ended, the iron began to rust. A progressive cognitive dysfunction crept in. Soon, Webster struggled with basic memory, with simple decisions. His moods swung violently, erupting in wild outbursts. As the symptoms worsened, he withdrew from his family, eventually living out of his pickup truck. His brain, stuck in a state of endless fight or flight, would keep him awake for days at a time. In desperation, he would use a taser to shock himself into unconsciousness, a crude and violent method to reset his own nervous system, just to find a moment of sleep. His ability to function dwindled to nothing. A local hospital, taking pity, allowed him to sleep in an unused room. It was there he died of cardiac arrest. The following morning, as Webster's body waited for its autopsy, Dr. Omalu learned the story from the news and his co-workers. But the narrative didn't align. To the pathologist, the sudden descent from 2 decades as a disciplined professional athlete into homelessness and chaos was not a simple story of personal failure. There had to be a cause. And so, despite no obvious signs of disease in the initial examination, Omalu carefully preserved a sample of the man's brain tissue. He believed the answer to Mike Webster's tragic unraveling was not in the stories told about his life, but locked somewhere deep inside the silent, damaged architecture of his mind. Beneath the microscope, a troubling story began to unfold. In the brain tissue of a fallen giant, there were abnormal accumulations of tau proteins, the same sinister tangles found in the minds of those lost to Alzheimer's. But this man, Mike Webster, was only 50 years old. Alzheimer's at such an age is an exceedingly rare specter. A closer look at the tissue revealed something else entirely. The pathology was distinct, a dark signature previously unseen. This was not a disease of old age. This was something new, something that had never before been identified in a football player. This was chronic traumatic encephalopathy. The cruel irony of the disease is that its true nature can only be revealed in the silence of the morgue. While its devastating symptoms play out in a person's life, a definitive diagnosis, even today, requires a post-mortem examination. The level of scrutiny needed is far beyond a standard autopsy. Brain tissue must be sampled, preserved, and dispatched to a specialist within hours of death. Even then, a diagnosis rests on a subtle art. It is not the mere presence or quantity of tau proteins that confirms the disease, but their specific placement, the unique and devastating geography they map across the brain. In practice, this means the vast majority of cases go unseen, uncounted, leaving researchers with only fragments of data to piece together the puzzle of its cause. Dr. Bennet Omalu and his collaborators published their findings, but the revelation was a quiet tremor, barely registering within the monolithic structure of the National Football League. That would change a few years later. Another Pittsburgh Steelers lineman, Terry Long, died by suicide. His body arrived once again at the Allegheny County Medical Examiner's office. Dr. Omalu took another sample, and there it was again, the same dark pattern. One case could be an anomaly. 2 suggested a terrifying, undeniable connection. Omalu went on the offensive, securing permission to examine the brains of more and more former players. Time and again, he and his partners found CTE. They diagnosed it at an extraordinary rate. With each new specimen, the wall of evidence grew higher. The correlation between a life in football and a mind in decay becoming irrefutable. But the NFL refused to see it. They deployed a strategy perfected by Big Tobacco, a playbook of denial and doubt. They hired their own researchers to publish their own papers, designed to discredit the work of Omalu and his colleagues. Behind the scenes, the league orchestrated pressure campaigns, leaning on academic journals, using their hired experts to attack the methodologies and poison the conclusions of the emerging science. But truth, once spoken, has a life of its own. Towards the end of the 2000s, the whispers from the laboratory reached the corridors of power in Washington. The House Judiciary Committee summoned NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell to testify. The hearing brought the full glare of the media, and with it, immense public pressure. Despite the league's formidable efforts, the narrative had been broken. A wide swath of America now accepted the brutal truth that football, the nation's beloved pastime, could be causing this devastating disease. This knowledge, now pervasive and unshakable, had a power all its own. It was a force that even the most powerful institution in American sports could no longer deny. A reckoning that had finally arrived. The crisis could no longer be prevented. It had to be addressed. But in the boardroom, the concern was not for the health of the players. The physical toll of the game was, to the league's executives, simply the cost of doing business. The true crisis, the one that threatened the very foundation of the enterprise, was a disruption in its most vital asset, the pipeline. This was the wellspring from which future stars emerged. But more critically, it was the breeding ground for the next generation of fans. For every 1,000 young athletes who dreamed of the professional league, the 999 who fell short were destined to become its most loyal customers, the buyers of tickets, merchandise, and broadcast subscriptions. And by 2007, the data revealed a troubling sign. As awareness of head trauma seeped into the public consciousness, participation in high school football began to plateau. By 2011, the plateau had become an outright decline. The league viewed youth participation as a leading indicator, a forecast of its own future. This was perceived as the potential start of a slow, decades-long cycle that threatened its supremacy over the American sports industry. A counteroffensive was required. If the domestic fan base was beginning to contract, the solution was as old as empire itself: find new fans. The league had long dabbled in global expansion, playing preseason games abroad for decades, and running a development league in Europe through much of the 1990s and 2000s. When that venture was shuttered, it was replaced by something far more potent, an annual regular season fixture in London. A genuine contest, with real stakes, played on a different continent. It proved an instrumental component in growing the burgeoning British market. So, as the concussion crisis reached its peak, the league doubled down. In 2013, one London game became 2. The following year, it became 3. The investment deepened, going so far as to contribute to the construction of a new stadium in London, in exchange for the inclusion of a retractable synthetic American football pitch for their use. Today, the international portfolio is larger than ever, with 7 regular season games slated for 2025 across São Paulo, Dublin, London, Berlin, and Madrid. The games themselves are merely tentpoles in a vast global strategy of broadcast deals and merchandising expansions, all designed to cultivate and monetize new clusters of fans. It is the relentless logic of an institution facing uncertainty at its core. When the heartland begins to falter, the frontier must expand. The game, it seems, must always find a new world in which to play. As the foundation of the sport began to erode, the National Football League moved not only to find new blood, but to staunch the bleeding. From the league's highest offices, a calculated pivot was initiated, coalescing around a single, elegant solution: flag football. In this reimagined version of the game, the brutal art of the tackle is replaced by a contest of finesse. A runner's progress is not halted by a violent collision, but by the deft snatch of a colored ribbon from a belt. For decades, it was a pastime relegated to physical education classes, rarely played with genuine competitive fire. But as the crisis over player safety mounted, the league unleashed its formidable resources to forge this safer alternative into a viable successor. An entire architecture for the sport's future was constructed, beginning with a youth league, NFL Flag, which soon swelled to more than 1,600 teams across the nation. The data suggests a seismic shift. More young Americans may now play the flag variant than the traditional tackle game. Its appeal is undeniable: a low risk of injury and minimal equipment, opening the field to legions of casual participants. As these children mature, opportunities multiply, particularly at the collegiate level for women, in a landscape where a tackle football ecosystem never existed. The league even announced its intent to create its own professional flag football league for both men and women. But the ambition reached far beyond American shores. The ultimate prize was global legitimacy, a place on the world's most revered athletic stage. A campaign was launched to secure flag football a spot in the Olympic Games. As a proof of concept, its inclusion was sponsored in the World Games, an international proving ground for non-Olympic sports. Even the league's own pantheon of stars was enlisted. The Pro Bowl, once a showcase of full contact prowess, was transformed into a series of skill exhibitions, its centerpiece now a game of flag. The full public relations might of the league was flexed, broadcasting a single, unified message to the world. And it worked. The International Olympic Committee approved the bid. Flag football would be part of the 2028 Summer Games in Los Angeles. Though only a one-time inclusion, it conferred a profound legitimacy, elevating the game from a schoolyard activity to a proper sport. Yet, for all its success, this carefully engineered salvation presents a fundamental paradox. Flag football may be a sport, but it is a profoundly different sport. This is not the subtle distinction between contact and no-contact ice hockey. The rules may echo one another, but the strategy, the incentives, the very soul of the game are divergent. One is a ballet of evasion and speed. The other, a chess match of violent force and strategic positioning. The athletes themselves are a testament to this schism. The new game sculpts bodies of lean muscle, built for agility, more akin to a soccer midfielder than the colossal, bulky titans who have long been the symbols of the American gridiron. The question that remains is not whether this new iteration can secure the future, but what kind of game will be left in its place. A sport, perhaps, transformed in the very image of its own survival. The skills are only partially transferable, a shadow of the original game, designed to preserve the spectacle while removing the impact. It raises a fundamental question. Does this new path create fans of a safer alternative, or does it dilute the very essence of the sport it seeks to save? The one solution almost guaranteed to work lies not in creating an alternative, but in reforming the original. If the National Football League could innovate the violence out of the game, if it could dramatically reduce the rates of CTE and concussions, its troubles might simply melt away. For over a decade, the league has rolled out a series of nuanced rules, redrawing the lines of permissible contact. But the most profound change arrived in 2024, with a complete reimagining of the kickoff. Previously, it was a brutal ballet. Teams lined up on opposite sides of the field. A kicker would launch the ball, and his team would sprint, a human wave accelerating toward the receiving team. The result was a series of massive, high-speed collisions. While kickoffs represented only 6% of all plays, they were accountable for a staggering 12% of all concussions. The new system, the dynamic kickoff, is more complex, but its consequence is simple. The majority of players now start just 5 yards apart, massively reducing the velocity of their encounter. According to the league's own data, the change correlated with a 43% reduction in concussions during kickoffs, contributing to a 17% reduction in concussions overall during that season. The change was not without its visible alteration to one of football's most iconic plays. But when a sport has a fundamental issue, fundamental change is perhaps the only real solution. This was not a change made in a vacuum. It was a response to a crisis now 2 decades old, dating back to the first scientific paper linking the game to the disease. 1 decade on from a Golden Globe-nominated Hollywood movie depicting the saga, and mere months on from a mass shooting perpetrated by a former player with CTE, the awareness of the disease's prevalence and severity only progresses. The science has grown more grim. In 2018, Boston University studied 164 brains from the general population. They found no evidence of CTE in 163 of them. The one exception was a former college football player. Yet, among the 376 brains they have studied from former NFL players, 345 were diagnosed with CTE, a prevalence rate of 91.7%, even accounting for a biased sample. As a growing number of states seriously consider a ban on tackle football for the young, the game finds itself at a precipice. It has proven that it can change, that it can mitigate the damage. But it leaves a lingering, unavoidable question. How much can a sport alter its very nature before it ceases to be the thing we once loved? And is the price of that love one we are still willing to pay? A current of thought gathers momentum, proposing that the game be treated not as sport, but as a public hazard, that youth tackle football be classified alongside alcohol and tobacco. While legislation has been met with fierce resistance, the trajectory suggests a future where some states may deem the risks too great for a child to bear. Yet, Even as an unprecedented number of people grasp the true peril of the game, all evidence suggests the National Football League has weathered the existential storm. For now. After more than a decade of decline, the emergence from the global pandemic saw a reversal in youth participation. The hemorrhage, it seems, has been staunched. Meanwhile, the league's revenues are ascending faster than ever, having doubled over the past 10 years. The Super Bowl of 2024 became the most watched broadcast in history, as 128 million Americans bore witness. But even as the league's executives exhale, and while genuine progress is made in reducing high-impact collisions, a more subtle transformation is underway. A silent, seismic shift is reshaping the very foundation of the sport, pointing it toward a form of future society may refuse to accept. Since the grim revelations of chronic traumatic encephalopathy, the socioeconomic landscape of the game has tilted. At the youth level, it is increasingly a sport played by children from poorer families. At the consumer level, the audience grows ever wealthier. The league has become masterful at catering to a more affluent demographic. And in this divergence, a widening chasm between the players and the spectators, the ancient echo of the Roman arena grows louder. The comparison to gladiators becomes less a metaphor and more a chillingly accurate description. For a growing number of young men, football is not a simple passion. It is their most viable, perhaps their only, chance to break the gravitational pull of generational poverty. No one is forced to play, but choice is an illusion when the alternatives are invisible. To reach the apex of any sport demands a staggering sacrifice, isolation, pain, a career that can vanish in a single, violent moment. But football stands apart. Its price is paid with the most critical, most irreplaceable organ in the human body. The damage is not a risk. It is a near certainty. The league offers some of the most life-altering wealth in professional sports, but it extracts a life-altering toll in return. And so, while the inertia of tradition and the power of spectacle have won the day, a fundamental question looms over the future of the game. It is a question of comfort, of conscience, and of how long a society can watch the drama unfold on its screens, knowing that the cost is measured in the minds of the young men who will one day hang up their cleats and face a silent, unforgiving twilight. At the heart of the University of Chicago, a tradition unfolds, a sprawling, chaotic ritual known as the world's largest annual scavenger hunt. We dispatched film crews to embed within the frenzy, to spend a week documenting the intellectual and physical chaos that consumes the campus. Months of editing followed, shaping the raw footage into a chronicle of that pursuit. The Game Show on Wheels becomes a study in social deduction, a comedy debate, filmed before a live audience, dismantles modern orthodoxies. A deep dive series explores the unseen logistical systems that underpin our world. These are not isolated projects. They are part of a curated collection from more than 250 independent creators. One filmmaker unearths the truth behind one of the largest scientific controversies of the 20th century. Another series dissects the minds of history's most influential and tyrannical rulers. This library is built on a different foundation. It is a deliberate departure from a model driven by advertisements and algorithms. by removing the incentive to chase fleeting attention over quality, a space is cleared for higher caliber, more ambitious work to take root. It is a system designed not to distract, but to engage. It is a quiet pact between the storyteller and the listener, a direct conduit for ideas, unburdened by sponsorship or interruption. In an age of endless noise, it is an attempt to reclaim the narrative, to build a place dedicated simply to the story itself.